Hi, everyone. Welcome to Radiant Living, Inspiring Humanity to Thrive. I'm Marisa B, your host, and today I have with me Marifran Korb. She's a relationship coach and an author of 4 published books, the most famous of which is called Breaking Through Concrete, The Gift of Having Mentally Ill Parents. With over 30 years successful coaching experience, Marifran works with clients that are empty nesters, those in midlife partnerships, and all those in long-term intimate partnerships that are looking to connect on a deeper level with their significant other. Hi, Marifran. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me, Marissa. I love being here.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to have you here. First of all, you're the author of 4 published books, and I know you're very busy. We mentioned briefly earlier when you and I chatted that a book is coming out soon, a new book. Can you, first of all, tell me, how did you get involved in all of this in the healing arts and coaching? Because you've been in this for many years.
Well, it started with a breakdown. You know, my husband and I were breaking up. And I actually, it was people that I knew that would call me and say, "Oh, you and Ed broke up. And I hear that you're still friends. How did you do that?" So then I would talk to them and people started paying me, because I was coaching them about their relationship. And that's really how I got started.
And how long were you in the marriage?
I was in the marriage 22 years.
Wow.
And, it went through quite a seismic shift. Afterward, the breakup was fine, not fine, but it worked out. Things worked out. We both evolved, and there's a lot of love there.
But of course, prior to that, you had experience. For example, your first book. I mean, you had experience in this. You didn't just one day decide to coach based on this, right? Because you had already been dealing with other things. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because that book is phenomenal for anyone out there. Let's say the title again is called Breaking Through Concrete, The Gift of Having Mentally Ill Parents. Yes, indeed. And that's a heavy topic.
Yes, and it's a big book. I'm in the process of actually making it into 4 separate books so that people don't have to buy the whole book at once. They could try parts of it. But yes, I came from a family where both my parents had mental illness. My father had depression and he was an alcoholic. My mother was a schizophrenic. It was actually disorganized schizophrenia. And she also had bipolar disorder, which was really dominated the whole family.
And she raised you. You were in the home with her.
Yes, I was for 17 years. And so that experience, impacted me. And then the man that I married also had depression. And so I didn't recognize it. He didn't know. It was undiagnosed. And, so it took a long time to actually see what was going on. And that's when I said, either you take medicine or I'm leaving. And then we broke up because he wasn't ready to take medicine. His fear was he wouldn't know who he was if he took the medicine.
So that's what he thought. That's what he thought.
Yeah.
But of course, you were always speaking with professionals because you had a life of individuals in it that had issues.
Actually, I hadn't been through.
Oh, you hadn't?
No. It was like too much money. I didn't know. No, I didn't talk about it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was
that does happen.
Yeah. So I didn't get help. What actually helped me was when my father died. This was after my husband and I split up, I started remembering a lot of things, a lot of things about him. And I wrote about it, and that's what started this book, Breaking Through Concrete. And it took me over 10 years to publish it, not
Oh,
to
wow.
write it, but to publish it. And
Wow.
at first, when I was writing it, I was thinking, I was like, oh, I don't want to go there, and I wouldn't write anymore for a while. Then I get it, I think I should really write this, but I wasn't thinking I was writing it for anyone else. I was just writing it for me, and to face those memories that I didn't want to look at. And it ended up in this book, and other people, it was wild to realize how many people have a difficult background like that.
Yes.
Other people told me, now I understand, what I went through. So,
Especially as a child alone, because a child in a home doesn't really believe that anyone else lives differently. They don't know. They only think that it's how they're living. And it's not until you become an adult and you start to find out, right, that other people live differently. So that book's very powerful for a lot of people that have to go back through their childhood once they're an adult.
well, actually, I knew when I was growing up that other people didn't live
Oh,
like
you did?
oh my, what a difference.
Mm-hmm.
My best girlfriend, I'd go to her mother's house, and her mother would sit us down and give us cupcakes.
Mm-hmm.
She got cupcakes every day
Mm-hmm.
after school. I was like, what? What
Mm-hmm.
is this? It's like I was happy for my friend, but I knew that wasn't my life. And oh yeah, and my house, the house I lived in, you could hardly walk because there was stuff strewn all over.
Oh, wow.
And my mother would have very bad experiences and very, very bad experiences. She, episodes where she would actually turn over the furniture because she was going to fix the furniture on the bottom. And so we couldn't, she would take, I mean, it was crazy. There was nothing in the house that was in order, nothing. You would not,
Well, it's not an ordered mind. It's not an
right,
ordered mind through no fault of her own. It's
right,
a shattered mind. And I'm just surprised that there were no, I guess, authorities that came
no.
in.
In those days,
Really?
everybody,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. This was long before you were born. That was like, no, people wouldn't touch,
Mm-hmm.
a family. Yeah, it was just the
Mm-hmm.
way it was. And you just looked the other way.
Wow.
I came from a big, big family with lots of cousins, aunts and uncles,
Right.
and they knew they couldn't deal with my mother, but
But they didn't know what to do,
right,
possibly.
they didn't know how to help her kids. And I wasn't an only child. I had two brothers,
Mm-hmm.
older and younger, and they suffered too.
No,
So
of
I was
course.
so glad to get out, so, but, but,
But that does happen. That happens often, that young adults try to get out of the home early
yeah,
when their home environment is not the
right,
best.
right,
So, and then you fast forward, then you married someone, he has depression, but you began to write the first book when your dad passed away,
right.
because it is a heavy book. And as you said, it was almost a form of journaling
Well,
your
yes,
story.
it gave me a different perspective. My perspective was my background was so embarrassing, so humiliating, so shameful that I couldn't talk about it. Um, so this gave me a perspective of, I was just a kid, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I was not responsible for any of this. And
Of course not. Right.
so it lifted that burden,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw myself as a kid who was pretty spunky, and I did my best to heal myself and get the heck out. I planned
Mm-hmm.
on getting out, when I was 12, 13 years old. I was like counting the days.
Oh, wow.
I figured out how to save money I worked, even as a teenager, worked at every babysitting job I could get so that I could get a car, and I'd be out of the house that way. Before I had a car, I had a bike, and I would disappear for most of the day in the summer because didn't want to be with my mother.
Well, very industrious, because you said that you realized, because most children don't, well, young children, they don't realize that people live differently. It's not until you get out and you go to other people's homes that you see it. So you learned relatively early then that your home was different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fortunately, I wouldn't want anybody to live like I did.
No, no. And the shame of it is that your parents didn't get any help because they didn't have those systems in place, or the systems were there, but people were not readily available to discuss it. Family members wouldn't come forward. It was a difficult time. So then you married your husband, and 22 years later, you came to separate and eventually divorce. But you say that you were still friendly with him. You were still on good terms.
Yes, yes, yes.
And that started your
the business,
your foray into coaching because of what was happening. Because I'm sure, I know definitely with divorce, there can be a lot of animosity, sadly, hatred at times. Can be a terrible situation. Not every divorce goes smoothly.
Right. The thing that I was clear about was what a good person he was, and it's not always easy to see that because of the behavior, lots of belittling, put downs, gaslighting, I went through all of that with him. And yet I knew he was better than that, that wasn't him. And like when I first met him, we met when I was in college. And I was 18, and he was wonderful. It was great to be around. He had great energy. And so I knew what he was like. And then, after we got married, very quickly, things started going downhill. But I knew he didn't have to be that way. And it was tough because I didn't know what was causing it. But slowly I noticed that his parents had, the same problem. His father was exactly like, much worse than Ed. And after we split up, I read that actually depression gets worse as you get older. And
it can. And a lot of individuals self-medicate. And then that self-medication turns into addiction.
Well, fortunately, he didn't self-medicate.
I thought you said he drank. I thought you said he drank. Oh, he didn't drink.
No. So anyway, he eventually took medicine. And so that's why I call myself a rejuvenating coach, because I was able to rejuvenate my relationship with my husband. I was able to rejuvenate my relationship with myself, given that I saw myself differently once I looked at my childhood in a new way. And I help other people rejuvenate their relationships, by looking at things with a new perspective.
Now, do you find that a lot of people in midlife find that their relationships may be stagnant, or that they're looking for something?
Well, the big thing that happens in midlife is that the children leave home. The children are a big project for the first part of one's marriage. And so what you need to do then is look at who you are now and what you want for your future, because it's about you two now. And a lot of times people realize that they don't know who their partner really is. They've lost touch with them because they are busy with the kids. So it's a big time. And it just so happened that I was an empty nester when I left my husband. It began like I was like, how am I going to go the rest of my life with somebody who's upset all the time? My husband had anger depression, which isn't talked about very often. You think of depression as sitting in a corner and crying, but no, that was not it. He was angry, and I couldn't figure out what was causing that. But then as I said, I saw it in my father-in-law, and I thought, he inherited something here.
Well, I know that individuals oftentimes, especially if they marry young and children come right away, they're occupied for a good portion of half of their marriage with
absolutely
running around, taking care of the children, doing things for the children. So oftentimes, especially women, they put themselves last.
For sure. That's right. So you have to rebuild a relationship, and you have to look at what is your future? What are you going to do together now? And you don't have to do things together, like you don't have to do the same things necessarily. But you want to find out what you have in common. What things do you like to do together? What things do you want to do by yourself? And then come back and tell your husband about. So those are things that I help people with.
But now, of course, you divorced. So I'm sure that some of your clients have divorced as well, because not everybody has stayed together. How does that work? I mean, how does one coach someone to stay together when they themselves have divorced? Because you said initially people came to you and said, how are you still friends? With your ex-husband?
Yes. Actually, I didn't get divorced. We separated.
Oh.
But it doesn't matter. As far as my clients are concerned, I don't coach people to leave or to stay together.
Right.
It's totally up to them what they need. But if I help them rejuvenate the way they see themselves and the way they see that relationship. For instance, when I broke up, I realized how important it is to break up in the right way, because we are geared to, in our society, we think we should be mad at that person. Of course, they did this and they did that. Oh, by God, they did that too. And I'm a victim here. And yes, there is that, but that doesn't have to be all inclusive. When you add the information of what brought you together, what love was there, what love can you pull out of the pain, and be at least civil to the other person, and find that you've got to work with that person if you've got kids. It's so crucial, and that's what I did. When I left, I realized that there were things that brought us together, and I thanked him for the things that I loved about him and the things he gave me. Not physical things, but the mental, emotional things that were good. It wasn't all bad. And then of course, then he started sharing what he loved about me. So we had that basis for leaving, and we were kind to each other. There was no hatred there. There was no even anger. It was by the time I left, I was able to be friends. He helped me move out, and he would when I wasn't there, we exchanged keys. When I wasn't at my apartment, my new abode, he would come in and bring groceries
Oh, nice.
of things I liked. And I would go to the house I lived in with him, and when I was doing my laundry there, I would do his laundry. What the heck, you know? I mean, it's just stuff like that. We called upon each other when there was a car breakdown or something went wrong somewhere. Whoever could help would help.
But
And
you never divorced him.
no, I never divorced him. Um, it was at the time there didn't seem to be a need. Neither one of us was in another relationship. And you know, the rest of the story is that we actually got back together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I don't always tell that because you know, I wanted a surprise in the book. Um, but it's so the story isn't just that we broke up as
Right,
friends,
exactly.
but that we actually were able to get back together.
Right.
It's been a totally different experience. And it's been about, let's see, we were married 54 years, if you count when we started, but we were separated for 5 years. And, you know, these 5 years really instructed me into what it was, my part in the breakup, too. Just seeing that I was so interested in holding it together that I wasn't giving him room to hold it together either, you know? So
Yes.
there were things like that, and that I put up with too much because I was used to putting up with stuff when I grew up. I was like, so that kind of abuse carried over, and I didn't recognize it as clearly enough to say, no, I'm not putting up with this. So there
Right.
were, you know, it told me a lot. And we were able to have conversations when we were apart that we never had when we were together, you
Well,
know?
I think it's a question of communication,
Yeah,
really.
yes. Well, the communication before was you know, I felt so responsible, like I've got to make this work. And so when you don't have to make it work, you have totally different conversations.
True. True. Well, because oftentimes people feel that they have to keep it together for either children or
Yeah,
their
yeah, there
belief
is that.
systems or family members that may not agree. So that often stunts communication or silences it because you really can't speak about what you want to speak about.
Well, I grew up Catholic too. And so that impacted me as well, even though I didn't hold myself as a Catholic anymore. It still affected me. And so at any rate, that's what happened.
And so now all these years later, you're helping other people
Yes, yes,
to work through their relationship. I'm assuming there are a lot of empty nesters that find themselves
yes, yes,
looking to speak to somebody.
absolutely. Even if you're not thinking of leaving, even if it's not uncomfortable, you want to rethink what's next. You want to, you know, just look ahead, not take day by day necessarily, but look at what is it that we really have together that we can build together? What are the things we want to work on? What's our next project? What can we do that will strengthen us? How can we support each other in being the best that we can be? Those kinds of questions.
But you do need the both parties to agree to work on it, though.
Sometimes just even one can make a huge difference.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. If one has that vision, they can share it with the other. So, you know, you don't have to have both there, um, at the same time.
Oh, you mean both in a coaching session? Right. But I think that they would have to agree to work on the marriage and the household, because otherwise it won't work.
Yeah.
In that respect. Yeah, no, I don't believe that they have to both go in to be coached at the same time, or even that one has to come, but yes, to have conversation with each other, because often there are many people who don't believe that there's anything wrong in the first place. So that's right. That's a block that has to be overcome.
Yes. Right. But by midlife, you're already thinking of getting out if you're that uncomfortable like I was, that it wasn't working. Yeah. Like, my daughter said, you're breaking up a happy family, she said to me. And I said, we weren't a happy family if somebody's not happy. And I'm
right.
Not,
and how old was your daughter when she said that?
20, 21, yeah.
So she was a young adult.
Yeah.
But yes, and it's hard on children.
Yeah.
I mean, I recall that I had a client that was in his 40s and that was still upset over the divorce of the parents.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get past it.
Yeah, and the younger you are, probably the harder it hits you.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm assuming so, sure. And he was an adult when it happened, and he was still irate over it in his 40s, which was carrying over into a lot of his relationships.
Yeah.
And but I feel that they both have to work on it, that the couple has to work on it, because there are some that don't want to, and then that won't work. But like you said, then the person can step aside and walk away. I mean, you don't want to necessarily do that, but if it has to help you to survive.
Right. It depends on how difficult that is, that the other doesn't want to work on anything. It's not that you have to work on the marriage. Sometimes the marriage is just, easy going. But if somebody doesn't want to be be more, or just, and the other does, it can be irritating. Yeah.
And of course, it causes problems, sure. But now you said you have now a new book that's coming out, and this book is, what is the title of this new book?
This is Thriving in Partnership Beyond Struggle. And
right, and this is specifically about midlife relationships.
Yes. And it's a very small book, if you can see. It's not a big book. So it's a quick read, but it's very powerful. It tells the story of how my husband and I broke up, and got back together. And it gives specific ways to do that, things that work for us. And, in breaking up, and then things to do when you're back together. So
now let me ask you, when you because you left the marriage.
Yes.
You wanted to separate. What was his idea? How did he feel at that time?
He was not happy, but he understood. He wouldn't stop.
So he did understand.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he totally understood. And he was the one that went to tell his parents that we were, that I was leaving. And he didn't blame me. There was none of that, but he was very sad about it.
Did he get to speak to somebody about it? Did he go for any? So because you said he was on medication, he decided to take medication later.
That's true. That is true. He did go to a psychiatrist to get the medication. And he was tested to see what would be the best medication. However, that was like right at the time I was leaving. He refused to go back and get the medicine, or to find out anything about the testing that was done. So he I forget what I was saying about the medicine.
About the, because of course a psychiatrist has to write a
Right,
prescription, so
right,
he had to go
right,
there for testing.
right. He did, and he didn't care for the psychiatrist, and so nothing ever came of it. Later, when he got the medicine, he actually got it from a regular GP,
Yes.
and Ed told him his symptoms, and the doctor couldn't write the prescription fast enough.
Right.
He had all the the symptoms.
And I mean, for myself as a therapist, of course, I feel people should talk about their issues because
Yeah,
you don't, if you bury things, they seem to pop up in other areas. And so I'm not saying that you have to repeatedly talk about it for 20 years, but some sort of conversation with some professional
I hear
should
you.
help people before, because of course you're a coach, so you're working on the person currently in the marriage, or wanting to leave the marriage, or finding something wrong with it. So they're working on the current situation. They're really not delving into anything from the past, or influences that affect those behaviors in the marriage. So sometimes it does help to be speaking to professional people on the side, and then a coach assists them in how, because it is all interaction, it is all communication. And you do have to have that effectively going on at the time that you're deciding whether to stay together or separate, or whether you just feel that there are issues. So you do have to work on it currently, but then you should be speaking to somebody, I think, to help you. Because oftentimes we do bring things with us.
What do you think there's a distinction with that kind of need between people who have temporary depression or people that have a clinical depression that is born with that?
Well,
would it matter?
well, I mean, this is only my personal opinion.
Uh-huh.
Being in this field, I believe that it is biological.
Right.
That when an individual, through no fault of their, whatever the diagnosis is, it is clearly biological, and perhaps we don't in science yet see it. I think that one day they will be able to see it. I know they're doing more and more with PET scans and more with mapping the brain, but I think that it really is chemical, and that it is something that has gone wrong for whatever reason, however it occurs, it now no longer works, and so you're in that state, and it's no fault of your own. And it doesn't have to be just depression; it can be any other type of diagnosis that deals with that, and that I think that one day they may find how to correct that. I mean, they're doing surgery with children in vitro to correct certain disorders that were in the DNA strands, that these children perhaps would be born with a deep birth defect. They actually do in utero surgery. So we're doing that now. Why would we not be able to find? I know that they say like the last great frontier is the mind. The brain, they understand, the brain and what's the difference between the brain and the mind. But I think that they'll find one day. That's why right now the medication is, and I'm not an advocate for medication. Well, I'll say that much. Even though I'm in this profession, I'm not an advocate for we have to take 5, 6, 7 pills. No, I don't believe in that. Are there individuals that need some medicine? Sure. Could some of them use it just short term? I believe so. Some have to be on it longer. But does the medicine cure something? I don't think so. I think it can help an individual to have a better balance in their life for the time being. So, but that doesn't negate the issues that go on, interpersonal issues with your family members, because you as the individual are already dealing with your own issues, whether you need medication or not. But then it's the interaction as you said, in the couple. How do you speak to each other? What's going on?
Well, when he took the medicine, he was restored to how he really is. And he didn't feel the need to talk anymore.
Mhm.
We talk to each other.
Mhm.
You know, we do that all the time, but especially when we got back together, we talked a whole lot
Mhm.
every single night. Um,
But he felt better. He did, in
he
fact, feel
oh
better, and you
oh it,
saw the difference.
oh absolutely. The difference was so dramatic that the people he was working with
Mhm.
said, "You're on something, Korb. You're
Mm.
on something." They knew he was different.
Mhm.
And they were joking around, but they saw something.
Mhm.
And oh, the difference was dramatic, you know. And so it allowed, you know, he took medication 3 years after we
Mhm.
broke up. And it took me 2 more years to start thinking maybe we could get back together. You know, not that I saw him that often, but
Mhm.
it occurred to me, what would it be like, you know, if we were together now?
Right, and he was
Right.
acting
And
differently.
right. And now, you know, before I couldn't do anything right. Now I can do nothing wrong.
Mhm.
You know, it's not only peaceful and loving, it's just he's more creative, he's more fun, he's restored to being witty and, you know,
Mhm.
telling jokes all the time. I mean, he plays music, you know, he had given that up. And
Mhm.
I tell you, it's like it's really dream come true.
Did you ever think that you both should go to talk to someone before you left initially? Did you think that that
I
would help?
no, actually, I was still dealing with my my parents,
Mhm.
my dealing with my mother especially.
Mhm.
I did see a therapist just once for issues with my mother, you know,
Mhm.
and you know, I just came to peace with on my own, really,
Mhm. And she
about
never
how,
got any help? She never got any help.
yeah, she got help. She took medicine. It still wasn't enough. Um,
No.
yeah, she was a real extreme
Mhm.
case. And I really feel for her. I don't think she was ever happy in her whole life. You know,
And
it's
of course,
sad.
being ill, and the medicine really doesn't help 100%. And sometimes it doesn't make people feel well, so they don't take it or they stop taking it. It causes issues. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
vicious cycle. It's a terrible, terrible disease that many people,
it
we
is.
hear cancer, we hear, um,
Yeah,
you know, multiple sclerosis, things like that. And we feel for people, but people really don't understand that when someone is not balanced, what a terrible disease it is. And it is, in fact, a disease.
it is. And the people that are suffering from it aren't happy. And then
No.
nobody's happy with them because they're not acting the way they would if they
Mhm.
didn't have that disease.
Right.
Very difficult. It's,
It is. It's a difficult, right. It is. And it's difficult for the family members
yes, yes.
around. And so now, this new book is that you're just speaking about is coming out next. It's actually going to be out next week.
It's the
Well, as we're filming next
yes,
week,
yes,
because
yes.
right, by the time it actually airs, it will have been out there. And what are the names of the two other books that you wrote?
The two other books are how to how to start a successful writing group. You know, it's a very small book. I
Oh,
just
that sounds wonderful because
yeah,
as you said, you used your writing, initially journaling and writing about your story
mm.
to come to terms with it. That's actually a good idea.
And the other one is from illness to wellness. It's a support for it's an emotional support for
Mhm.
long-term illnesses. That is like cancer or
Yes.
something that's it's a way for people to come together and support the person that's going through a long-term illness.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
funny because just recently I was speaking with someone and she made the comment that unless you've had cancer, for example,
Mhm.
people can empathize, but you really don't understand
Oh, yeah.
I guess, the the day-to-day that they go through.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually lovely, a lovely idea to have a book like that to, for other people to understand how to, help. Because it's very, I think it's very difficult.
Yes.
Even though we want to help, right? And we haven't gone through it. How do we actually know what they're going through?
Experiencing, right. Right.
And it's
And I
a
have a friend,
difficult thing.
yeah, I supported a friend and had a ceremony for her. And during that ceremony, some of the people that were part of it said, "Oh, I like this for everybody." So, I put it in writing, and it's up on Amazon as well as
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Well, I'm
Yeah.
actually going to put all of the information in the description box to
Thanks.
the show, because this way people have it at their fingertips. And you now, if someone wants to get a hold of you, you do have a website also.
Yes, it's marifrankorb.com.
And are you online and in person? How is that working with you? Because you have experience over 30 years, so you've been through the pandemic with clients.
Yes. Oh, yes, I do Zoom with clients.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And now have you gone back to seeing clients
In
one-on-one
person?
also?
Actually, no. Yeah, I'm still doing, I have a lot of clients in other cities,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
I mean,
it's,
many of mine have not come back. They prefer the online.
yes.
I think they're comfortable in their environment. And it
Yeah.
says a lot for the fact that they're in their environment. And some
Sure.
have moved. Sadly, during the time of the pandemic, they had to move, whether they were furloughed or could no longer afford it. They went to different cities, different states.
Mhm.
So they're happy continuing with
Yeah.
the online help. So I'm just happy that we have this now, this, type of
Oh,
medium
yeah.
to offer them. But the one-on-one is not coming back as readily, because I guess people are fearful still.
Well, and it takes time to get to somebody's
Mhm.
office, and it takes time to drive home too.
Mhm. Right.
So, yeah, this is
Yeah.
a Zoom can be quite intimate.
Yes, it can.
Yeah.
Yes, and indeed it can. And you want to be out there to help everyone. So you wouldn't want to turn them away, especially during a
Right.
time of crisis.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
now what's next for you?
Well, the next thing is that I'm going to put my book, Breaking Through Concrete, into 4 little books and get those published. So that's the next project.
Yeah. As you said right earlier, you want to separate it into smaller chapters, smaller
Mhm.
chapbooks, actually, really, to help others. And I do want to thank you so much for coming on today. I
Oh,
know that
thank
these
you, Marissa.
subjects are very heavy subjects.
Mhm.
I know that we're here trying to help everyone, trying to get the word out. I really suggest people read your books.
Thank you.
They will help them going through something, especially someone who's dealing with a family member that may be ill,
Yeah.
that may have illness with mental wellness. I think it's a good read. It's important because so that they feel that they're not alone, because often they feel they're alone in what they're dealing with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's really a heartbreaking illness.
It
Any
is.
kind of mental illness is.
It is. It is. And I think that actually, first of all, the more we speak about it and the more help we try to give others, I think that's
Yes.
important.
There should not be any uh, bad press
All
about
right.
mental health or mental illness. We all have times when we're down.
Right.
We all go through stuff, but I think any kind of really serious mental illness that is inherited, especially, it's it's very difficult to shake.
Mhm.
Some people might have a light case and they feel bad certain times, you know, but some people are dealing with it day by day.
Mhm.
And it's it affects their whole life and all aspects of their life. And
Oh,
relationships
absolutely.
and relationships suffer. And if we
Yes.
don't have good relationships in the world, it's like the beginning of wars, and
Well, that's exactly it, right?
yeah, and lack of peace does so much damage.
Hmm. And the mere fact that you don't take the time to understand someone else, right? I mean, someone else is going through their own path, their own issues, their own wellness, and you don't take the time to understand that, or you shriek back from it. That turns sometimes ugly, and
Yeah,
that's how
yeah,
we have problems on the planet, right?
but
If
you
we would
can't,
only help one another.
for sure. But I wouldn't say that everybody can save a marriage when one partner is mentally ill. That it depends on the partner. Uh,
Right. Well,
yeah,
yes, of course. So no, of course.
yeah,
And they they have to be able to have avenues for help. That's the best thing for them,
yes,
avenues
yes,
for help
yes,
in
yeah,
whichever way that can be. And
right,
sometimes it doesn't mean that the marriage stays together.
right, and that's okay too.
Right, right. Just that we don't want to hate one another. That's the whole thing. You don't have to
But,
walk away hating.
right, right, for
Well,
sure.
thank you so much, Mary Fran. I'm so thrilled that you came on today.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Yes, Marissa.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.